So I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about what we read from our first reading, which was from the book of Wisdom. It's a really, as all of these readings are, it's profound, right? It's a very profound reading that if we kind of look into it a little bit more, we can see some truths that can really speak to our heart. And so let's just take a look real quick. So we start out by saying, in Wisdom, we start out by reading, God did not make death, nor does he rejoice in the destruction of the living. Now this seems pretty obvious, right? But let's take a look. God did not make death. He didn't make death in the physical sense. That's not part of the original order of creation, right? There was supposed to be no death. Death came as a consequence of original sin, of Adam and Eve choosing to disobey God, letting themselves be deceived by the enemy, by the great serpent who lied to them and told them that if they ate the fruit, they would have knowledge and therefore life. And then in that, they entered into a path of perdition and death. But that was not the original plan. Death was not part of God's plan. Not physical death, and nor do we see destruction of the living, spiritual death. That we were meant to not only live eternally physically, but we were also meant to live eternally spiritually. And we were meant to, in this life, thrive and flourish so that we can live eternally with Christ forever in heaven. But you see, when we talk about the destruction of the living, we're not talking about the death we experience physically. We're not talking about simply our own physical annihilation. We're talking about all of those times in our lives where our life falls short, for whatever reason, of God's will, God's plan, God's original intention. The times when we suffer, the times when we struggle, the times when we sin, the times when, etc., etc. It was not part of God's plan. He did not make death. He did not intend for us to be destroyed, to suffer. He does not rejoice in it. What is it then? What was his plan? Well, again, his plan was life in heaven and abundance here on earth. The opposite of destruction would then be, again, flourishing, being fulfilled. And we have to choose then, we have to see, if this was not his will, sometimes the lives we live, or even how the natural order goes, well then we have to ask what is. And then we have to ask then, if we have these two choices, these two dynamics, these two possibilities or permutations of our life, we then have to say, well, how do we get to them? What leads us one way, what leads us another? And, well, the obvious one, because I said it a few minutes ago, choosing away from God, choosing to disobey, to walk away, to not follow him, leads to death and destruction. Leads to a life we can barely say is worth living. It leads to a life that we were never intended to have. And certainly, the Lord does not rejoice in. But then he gives us the choice to follow him. He gives us a choice to follow him in the big ways and the small. To see, Lord, what do you want for my life? Where are you leading me? What do you want for me? And if we say yes, we will have life as it was meant to be. My brothers and sisters, many of us have been there, where we have to choose to follow him or not, where we have to choose to accept his proposition, accept his offer, accept his guidance, or turn away and walk away. My brothers and sisters, we know too, myself included, what it's like to turn away from him. In the big ways, in the small. And I've yet to meet anyone who is happy to have turned away. I've met many who are happy, who are pleased, who are excited, who are fulfilled at saying yes. But more than anything, when we're asking about what is the Lord's will in our life, what is He calling us to do, what is He calling us to, we have to kind of shift our hermeneutic, our perspective, our mode of understanding. Because so often we always ask, what is the Lord calling me to do? What would Jesus do? I really don't like that phrase, by the way. But if it works for you, sure, fine. But whatever. I'm not going to offend you all my last day here, right? If it works for you, go for it, right? But we ask what, etc. But the one thing we seem to not ask enough or at all is, Lord, not what do you want me to do, but who do you want me to be? Getting to the core of who we are, of our identity. Because when we live, when we ask the Lord, who do you want me to be? Who are you calling me to be? We ask Him and then He answers, and He does. When we receive that answer and we live according to that answer, to that response He gives us, that calling He has put in us, then and only then can we and will we live life as He made for us. My brothers and sisters, I invite you today to ask the Lord who He's calling you to be. Now, a lot of you might say, well, I already know, Father, I'm so-and-so, I'm this and this. Oh, there's something more there. Who are you deep down? What is the core of your being? Who is Christ calling you? What is God the Father? Who does He want you to be? What is He trying to move within you? Are you living that out? Are you who He wants you to be? It's kind of a trick question too. I'll kind of do a little bit of a spoiler alert. The answer is a little bit of yes and a little bit of no. A little bit of we're there yet and not. My brothers and sisters, we must ask the Lord who He wants us to be. And we must have the courage to live that out. In the big ways and in the small. So often, by the way, He wants you all to be good husbands, good fathers, good wives, good mothers. And those are big picture things that then also are concretized in the little things, in those little moments. But ask yourself, ask Him, not, Lord, what do you want me to do? But who are you calling me to be? Because when we respond to the call of God, when we live out our identity, when our identity is rooted in Him and Him alone, and we live according to who He wants us to be, to who He's calling us to be, we will live, hands down, the greatest life we could ever possibly dream of. We will live a life, no regrets, no sorrows, in terms of existentially. And we will be fulfilled in the greatest way possible. And especially to the young people here today. Sorry, middle-aged and older. No offense, but I want to speak to the young people here. Guys, young men, young women. When I was younger, I didn't ask that question for a while. I didn't want to know who God wanted me to be. Because I wanted to kind of define my own life, be my own person. And then when I finally got around to asking Him, I said no. 3 times. I rejected the Lord. And I regret every single one of those. To all of the young people here, I'm giving this advice to you from my own experience and from my own regret. The best question you can ask, the best favor you can do for yourself, is to ask the Lord who He wants you to be. And then the best thing you can do is have the courage and the trust that He will never lead you astray. To think, I once thought that I could not be happy as a priest, that the Lord was calling me to a life of misery. If we fast forward to my time at Christ the King, it's totally nothing. It's totally the opposite of that. It's the best life ever, and totally the best, absolutely the best. But to everybody here, and especially the young people, whatever the Lord is calling you to, whoever the Lord is calling you to be, if you have the courage to ask Him and then the courage to follow Him, you won't regret it. Because whatever the Lord is calling you to, whoever the Lord is calling you to be, it is the best life. No matter what it is or who you are. And so, to everybody, my brothers and sisters, young, old, middle-aged, whoever, everybody, ask the Lord, who is He calling you to be? Now, forever. Have the courage to follow Him. I promise you, it's the best decision you'll ever make. You'll never regret it.